Hello everybody, thank you for joining me, Christophe Paget, on this Aerospace News Christmas edition, where cargo spacecraft left the ISS, UK vertical launch site gets his CAA license, Starbase edged even closer to his Starship integral flight testing number 3, a French baguette is now in the race for spaceflight, NASA is groundbreaking its laser communication system. Ariane 6 has passed all required testing prior to its maiden flight. And of course, as always, we shall review the launches of the week and also progress made on Moon-Mars bases. This week, we have been blessed with 2 cargo spacecraft undocking from the ISS. December 20th, we have seen an automatic undocking of the SpaceX CRS-29 Cargo Dragon with rubbish on board, but also samples from the experiments run in the ISS. This cargo spacecraft stayed at the ISS for over 5 weeks and originally put 6,500 pounds or 3 metric tons of cargo to the ISS. December 21st, we have seen the robotic release of the Northrop Grumman Cygnus 19 cargo from the ISS with similar payloads. Now, this spacecraft first arrived at the ISS 19 weeks ago thanks to the last Antares rocket. Now, why the last Antares? You may ask, well, it's because these engines were made of Russian and Ukrainian parts, which can no longer be provided. So the next Cygnus resupply mission will be sent via a SpaceX Falcon 9, first of all, until the next Northrop Grumman rocket is available, and that will be based on Firefly's 7 Miranda's engines. Going back to Cygnus 19, the spacecraft brought to the ISS over 8,200 pounds or 3.7 metric tons of cargo. Saxoford in the Shetland in Scotland has used a disused Royal Air Force base to host the next UK or even Europe's first operational vertical launch complex. The UK Civil Aviation Authority, or CAA, has this week granted an operating license to Saxoford to launch rockets from as early as 2024. It is licensed for up to 30 launches each year and cater for companies looking to launch satellites into polar or sun-synchronous orbits. 2 German companies, Rocket Factory Augsburg and High Impulse, hope to carry out launches from Saxoford in 2024. Scotland is clearly setting a strong footing to become mainland Europe's operating vertical launch complex. Starbase was still full of activities. Indeed, we have seen 2 starships, number 29 and number 30, in a very mature stage of readiness. So those 2 are just the one, perhaps, for the flight test number 4 and number 5. And that they look rather mature, but of course from the outside. But judging from what has been done in the past, as they integrate the Starship, they are dealing with the inside at the same time. So it's likely that those particular starships are also quite mature in the inside. Starship number 28 was installed on Pad B. It's one of the 2 pads that was used to mature the Starship. Bear in mind that Pad A has been demolished this week as well. So that is the intention is basically to test the Starship number 28. And the orbital launch mount was further updated, such as the booster refuel system pipes. And we saw also booster number 13 being assembled in Mega Bay, and the tank farm was being tested after adding more components to it and repairing the parts which were damaged during the integral flight test number 2. So Starship number 28, as expected, had its down tested and his engine spin primed, meaning that they tested the engine functioning without igniting the chamber. Starship 28 has now carried out its static fire. What is remaining to carry out is the booster number 10 static fire and the wet dress rehearsal prior to the Starship integrated test number 3, based on what we have seen so far. SpaceX has treated the surrounding residents with drone fireworks, which was rather impressive and more environmentally friendly. It seems that a French baguette received funding for going into space, believe it or not. A consortium led by French launch startup Hyperspace has secured 35 million euros in funding for the project Agile de Développement d'Accès à l'Espace, or PADA1 project, co-funded by the French government. The team, made up of Hyperspace, Téléspatio France and CT Engineering, aim at launching a suborbital version in 2026 and the orbital Baguette 1 thereafter. So Baguette 1, or OB1, is a single-stage orbital launch vehicle that will stand at least 7 meters tall and have a maximum payload capacity of about 300 kilograms. Now, I never thought I would ever see a baguette into space. Whatever next? You might think I've gone mad with this video of a cat, but actually, bear with me, it is a first in deep space communication. Let me explain. NASA has programmed this video into the Psyche spacecraft, the same spacecraft sent by a Falcon Heavy back in October 13th in 2023. The craft has now traveled 19 million miles, or 31 million kilometers, which is about 80 times the Earth-Moon distance. The spacecraft has just sent this video via a laser link race communication system, which traveled only 101 seconds to reach NASA team in California, sent at the system's maximum bit rate of 267 megabits per second, to then display such a high-resolution, high-speed video live, which is a first in the world and of this type communication. After receiving this video at NASA, it was resent over the internet, and that connection was slower than the signal coming from deep space. This opens up new ways of communication with, for example, a rover in Mars, for example, to operate them nearly live instead of programming the rover to be autonomous and capable of resolving complex tasks without human interactions. By the way, a similar device is installed on the ISS. I have discussed it in previous episodes, link on the top right corner of your screen. ArianeGroup has completed a final test before its maiden flight next year, according to ESA. Last Friday, CNES, ArianeGroup and ESA completed the last of a supercool propellant loading tests for Ariane 6, including a 4-second ignition of the main stage. The combined test loading was the last in a series of rehearsals on the full-scale rocket to practice launch operations for Ariane 6, and the final one before its first flight test next year. It included tests of ultimate contingency modes. This was the 5th countdown run to include loading Ariane 6 with propellant since July. The rehearsal was very well executed and the countdown ran exactly as planned. The test was a full success and the task force thanks all team involved, a joint report released by ArianeGroup said. December 16th, Roscosmos launched a Soyuz 2.1B frigate M from its launch complex 31-6 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Payload was the second Arctica M satellite, a meteorology and emergency communication satellite destined to a 63.4 degree Molniya orbit with a perigee of about 1,000 km and an apogee at about 40,000 km. The Molniya orbit, with an example on your screen, is selected to allow such a satellite to be geostationary twice a day at much lower altitude, meaning that during the day and during the night, such satellite would follow the same point at its perigee, that means the one closer to the Earth, and in this case, across the whole of Russia, or slightly north of Russia, effectively. In order to reach such an orbit, the frigate upper stage vehicle hosted inside the Soyuz fairing was used. Now, Arctica M was developed by NPO Lavochkin, part of Roscosmos, for climate and environmental monitoring in the Arctic region. And according to Roscosmos, Arctica M is intended for information support and solving tasks in operational meteorology, hydrology, hydrometeorology, climate and environmental monitoring in the Arctic region. December 17th, iSpace launched his Hyperbola 1, a 4-stage rocket for his Huangquan Satellite Launch Center in China. The launch was successful after 3 previous failed launches. The payload was the herein satellite, which is a small unmanned spacecraft designed by iSpace to transport optical observations and life science payloads. According to the company, herein successfully entered in a sun-synchronous orbit at an altitude of 500 km and an inclination of 97.4 degrees. December 19th, Blue Origin launched its New Shepard mission NS-24 after a 14-month pause, whilst resolving the cause of its NS-23 launch failure. I have covered this failure and the causes in a previous episode linked at the top right corner of your screen. The launch went as planned, with a payload made of the same equipment from the NS-23 mission. On the same day, SpaceX launched 23 Starlink V2 mini satellites to circular low Earth orbit at 530 km altitude and 43 degree inclination for its mission Group 634 on board of a Falcon 9 Block 5 from his Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The first stage landed 612 km downrange on the drone ship A shortfall of Gravitas for his 3rd time. December 21st, the Russian Space Forces launched a Soyuz 2.1A from its Plesetsk Cosmodrome in Russia with another mission Cosmos with classified satellites to an expected sun-synchronous orbit. Astrolab and Interstellar Lab are teaming up for a mission called Little Prince. Interstellar Lab is specializing on large biopods and plant growth in space. They are looking to grow flowers on the moon in transparent, controlled environment plant pots and capture data and pictures of this first step towards making any life multiplanetary. One of the first steps to colonizing the moon, Mars, and beyond. The company partnered with Astrolab to install the payloads on the lunar surface with FLEX, Flexible Logistic and Exploration Rover. Keep watching this channel for more content of this kind. On Christmas Day, the Chapier Mission 1 crew of 4 has now been 6 months in a simulated Mars environment, which corresponds to half of the total mission. The crew is composed of Kelly Haston, PhD and commander, Ross Rockwell, flight engineer, Nathan Jones, medical doctor officer, and Dr. Anka Celario, science officer. So one crew member managed to even celebrate his 50th anniversary with his wife. They kept busy with various NASA tasks, including recreational topics such as music, movies, and reading. They have managed to grow plants in the same way they would do on Mars. Now, they are being monitored by health and behavior specialists to understand how the crew is doing at halfway point. They are also blessed with logistical issues and communication issues to simulate their reaction in many scenarios. For example, built in the mission is delay in the communication to allow the crew to live real experience and study how they anticipate in their communication to be more and more efficient, to be useful on the next mission, for example. They are bonding well, tricking each other at Halloween, moving furniture around to keep busy. Well, it's not far from what you'll be doing on Earth, and they are planning to have a party to celebrate such a milestone, being halfway point in the next days. As a tradition in this channel, I leave you with this stunning picture from the James Webb Space Telescope showcasing the spectacular supernova remnant Cassiopeia A in unprecedented details. Now, James Webb's razor-sharp view can detect the tiniest knots of gas composed of sulfur, oxygen, argon, and neon from the star itself. Embedded in this gas is a mixture of dusts and molecules which will eventually be incorporated into new stars and planetary systems. Some filaments of debris are too tiny to be resolved, even by James Webb Space Telescope, meaning that they are comparable to or less than 16 billion kilometers across, or around 100 astronomical units. And bear in mind, 1 astronomical unit is the distance between the Sun and Earth. And in comparison, the entirety of Cassiopeia A spans 10 light years, or roughly 96 trillion kilometers. The Cassiopeia A supernova remnant is located at 11,000 light years away in the constellation Cassiopeia. It's estimated to have exploded about 340 years ago from NASA researchers' point of view. Thank you for joining me today. I wish you a Merry Christmas for some and a Happy Holidays for others. See you next week and goodbye.